This is the most flagrantly, staggeringly, obscenely corrupt thing that Trump has ever done in office. I have in my hand what purports.
Dude, this is so funny. Legal Eagle is pissed off. I mean, it's true, by the way. Everything he's saying is true. This January 6th shit is so insane. And not only that, but he also argued for a carve out where the IRS, like where he has protection against, IRS actions in the future too. It's ridiculous.
To be the settlement of Trump's claims against the IRS for the disclosure of his tax agreements. That is a lie. That is a fraud on the American people. What Trump is doing here is creating an illegal fund of billions of dollars to pay out whomever he chooses, including and especially the traitors who breached the Capitol and tried to overturn the election to turn it over in Trump's favor. My blood is boiling. This is a new low for this administration. And this is an administration that has been rife with corruption and illegality, but this is probably the worst thing that they have done so far. Now, suffice to say, the president cannot take taxpayer money and give it to whomever he wants. But this unbelievably, ironically named anti-weaponization fund is exactly that. He's going to pay out his friends, his family, and domestic terrorists. And that's just who we know about. I'm frankly running out of adjectives. This is theft. This is corruption. This is treason. If he gets away with this, there are simply no more limits, at least with respect to what Trump can do with taxpayer money. If he can pay out billions with a B to his cronies without any real oversight, I don't know, are we done as a country? At best, this is Orban-esque. But this is frankly verging into Putin territory. And of course, the corruption cherry.
No, it is. Not verging, it is. It's 1,000,000% in violation of everything this government has ever stood for theoretically. It is 100% full-blown Turkification. This is like those who are fresh off the boat from third world countries, developing nations around the world, have already experienced a version of this in their countries. I've seen it in Turkey. This is literally unheard of in America, to do this in broad daylight. No sophistication whatsoever. So openly, so nakedly, cruel and incompetent, and also directly just engaging in the act of theft. It is, I've never seen anything like it happening in America. I never thought that this would happen in America. This is literally the one thing that every fresh off the boat immigrant's parents will say does not happen in America, right? It's a failure of the system. It's done.
On top of the corruption Sunday is that Trump is personally ending and forbearing all audits and suits into his businesses and his family's finances. Oh, and the government is issuing him an apology as well. Wonderful. Now, we're talking about this as if it is a legal settlement to the claims that he had against the government that he has control over. But it is not. This is not a settlement. This has about as much to do with a legal settlement as a shoehorn has to do with a French horn. I'm reluctant to even talk about the legalities or the legal aspects of this because there's nothing legal about this. There was no process here. There was no judicial review. There was no decision by a fact finder or a jury. This is simply Trump taking.
Yeah. Trump literally said, give me $1 billion and we'll call it a day. It's incredible. It's genuinely unbelievable how bad this is. I genuinely don't know what to say, because it's straight up stealing money from the American taxpayer for himself. But he can do anything he wants with it. And you know who actually put it? Wrote the standards of this agreement? Trump's own defense attorney, Todd Blanche, who is the current acting defense attorney now, or acting attorney general, because the previous attorney general, who also was another Trump defense attorney, was fired. Both of his attorney generals are his defense attorneys. It's insane.
Power and paying it out to whomever he wants to. That being said, the fig leaf that they are using to cover up their own manifest corruption and illegality is that this was related to a demand that Trump had for $10 billion related to the 2020 disclosure of his tax returns by a contractor at the IRS. Now, we are in the process of writing and filming a video that goes into much more detail about the legal aspects and really more relevant here, the illegal aspects of what's happening. That's going to come out in a few days. But suffice to say, Trump's suit was unbelievably bogus. Again, you can sue anyone for anything and claim that you're entitled to however much money you want, but in that case, in the best of circumstances, a disclosure of those kind of tax returns would be limited to $1,000 per disclosure, and the statute of limitations is 2 years, which has long since elapsed. Oh, and by the way, the president who was in control of the IRS at the time that those tax returns were disclosed was President Trump himself. Oh, and the irony here is that yes, while leaking tax returns is illegal, the only reason the American people didn't already have Trump's tax returns is that he refused to turn them over like every single other presidential candidate does as a matter of course when they run for president. And of course, which he pledged to eventually release and never did. But he was probably withholding them because he was looking down the barrel of hundreds of millions of dollars of fines related to his tax crimes, including double dipping. Crimes which he has now given himself immunity. And those crimes, and
not just himself, his shithead family members, including his dickhead kids, his sons, and his companies as well. Dude, it's kind of awesome how open and how naked this corruption is. It is remarkable to watch it unfold and then have like his cult look at this and go, what now, libtard? Yeah, he's stealing from me. F you, he deserves it. We are truly in uncharted territory. Like, this is Donald Trump's I can execute someone on Fifth Avenue and my fans would still love me moment. This is straight up an execution. This is the thing that Republicans hate the most, right? If they had any ideological commitment to a movement or a belief system bigger than Donald Trump, this would be it. What do Republicans complain about all the time? Oh man, the government is so corrupt. Oh man, where are my tax dollars going? Well, it turns out your tax dollars are going to Donald Trump and whoever he wants to give your tax dollars to. So if you personally don't look at the situation and go, this is insane. Okay, a chatter brought up a really good point, and I have to address it. He said, well, they claimed they hated pedophilia too, and here we are. Okay, fair. At this point, to expect Republicans to care about anything beyond whatever makes Trump happy is a silly endeavor. The only thing Republicans are animated by is to praise dear leader. He doesn't take his salary, though. Brother, what the f are you talking about? Yeah, he doesn't take his, meager wages in comparison to how much he has literally done insider trading. There's no way you're that stupid, right? That has to be bait. Who even brings that up at this point? Yeah, he doesn't need a salary. He's made like $6 billion since he became president, you idiot.
The tax crimes of his family members and businesses were not even part of his suit against the IRS. He's just throwing them in because why not? The New York Times is reporting that the IRS actually issued a 20-page report on how bogus this suit was. This suit was a joke, and frankly, on this channel, we treated it as such because it was so stupid and so brazen. And frankly, we thought the worst that was going to come from it was that it was just going to be tossed out of court and it was going to waste taxpayer resources. My God, how wrong we were. But what became legitimately interesting is that the judge in that case realized that there was a problem. Trump was not only the plaintiff in this case, but also the defendant. He controlled the IRS and the Department of Justice. And so the judge appointed what are called amici to discuss whether there was something called a case in controversy. You can't just sue yourself. You can't collude with a friend to sue over something and get a payout when there's no real controversy and there's no adversity. And the judge correctly realized that. And because the Trump Department of Justice couldn't be trusted to actually defend that suit, they appointed an amici to discuss that particular issue. Oh, and by the way, the entire lodestone of right-wing judicial theory right now rests on what's called the unitary executive theory, which purports that there is no distinction between the president and anyone in the executive branch, which even by that particular theory meant that Trump was suing himself and absolutely could not have recovered from the public coffers from his bogus BS case. But the fact that Trump sued himself as the sitting president is a scandal in and of itself. The fact that the interim head of the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, is Trump's personal lawyer who should have been conflicted out of that position, that is a scandal. The fact that we even got to this point alone shows us how low the bar has gotten. Trump's lawsuit had about as much legal basis as your average sovereign citizen nonsense who claims that they can drive a car without a license or isn't required to pay taxes. As you can tell, I'm angry. And what's worse is that right-wing news sources are simply ignoring this because it is absolutely indefensible. But honestly, I don't think people understand how bad this really is. This settlement creates a slush fund that will be controlled by a 5-member board, which of course
What Trump is doing is literally how libs portrayed Kim Jong-un, the Castros, Hugo Chavez, the CCP, the Central Committee of the USSR, etc., in order to justify their own system that produced Donald Trump. Absolutely. This level of naked corruption is far beyond the most exaggerated claims that liberals make about like our socialist adversaries. Okay, like even the way that we present foreign adversaries as like corrupt autocracies don't get to this level. Vladimir Putin doesn't do this in broad daylight. Recep Tayyip Erdogan doesn't do this in broad daylight in the way that Trump is doing, because that's how stupid the average American hog is. Like, I'm telling you, I'm Turkish. I grew up in this environment. I've seen Recep Tayyip Erdogan engage in unbelievable levels of corruption by way of his family. And even then, there is a legal process, or at least like some kind of fake legal process, or some kind of shelter from the average Turkish citizen directly seeing the Erdogan regime go, give me the tax dollars, I'm going to put it in my pocket, and I'm going to protect my family members directly in broad daylight. It's actually insane. So in some ways, Donald Trump isn't lying when he says he's the most transparent president. It's just that he is transparently and nakedly corrupt. He is unbelievably transparent in a way where no other tyrant even is that transparent, because they at least know that if they were to be that transparent in their naked corruption, their brazen corruption, then their own fans would probably rise up and revolt.
course, is appointed by Trump. He can add or remove members as he sees fit. There will effectively be no oversight whatsoever. And by the terms of this settlement, they can basically choose to hand out money to whomever they want under whatever criteria they want. And you can bet that they will pay out whoever Trump wants. There are no real guardrails here. This is pure patronage for a king. The language allows the board to pay whoever they want. They can pay Trump if he wants to, under any criteria. But make no mistake, President Trump—
Yeah, like someone actually brought up a good point. At least Erdogan took all that funds and gave it to his son-in-law. But then his son-in-law at least built like an indigenous defense manufacturing business that's like fairly competitive. This is just Trump literally saying like, give me the billions. I'll give it to some people that were a part of this insurrection, my own paramilitary force. And then the rest I'll pocket on my own. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, again, in broad daylight. June 1st, 1933, the Fund of German Trade and Industries created a huge slush fund administered by Martin Bormann in the Fuhrer's name. The regime used the funds to compensate SS stormtroopers who committed street violence, subsidized the SS, and enriched Nazi party officials. Yeah, this is actually kind of worse than that because it's not even an organized militia. I guess I'm happy that we don't have an organized SS-style paramilitary formation yet. But Trump is just giving this to like random HVAC business owners who storm the halls of the Capitol, and also his own, like he's gonna just fund his own damn self. Oh, true. I mean, we have ICE. I guess you're right. We have ICE. ICE has become de facto that.
Is raping the public treasury for his own gratification. And this slush fund agreement, it's a troll. It purports to claim that Trump is not being paid out. But if you give someone an account with billions of dollars in it and they have control as to how it's paid, even if that account isn't in their name, if they have sole control over it, it's their money. And that's exactly what they've done here. Now, we don't know exactly who will be compensated.
Well, I'll have you know that it's not directly in Trump's pockets. It's actually a 5-person committee appointed by Trump's defense attorney, Trump's defense attorney, Todd Blanche, who is now the acting attorney general of the United States of America. So technically, who knows what that hand-selected 5-person committee will decide on who gets to have what kind of money. Do it how JD would, rage bait? Yeah. Actually, this is an important point to make about truth and justice. It's obvious that lawfare took place against the bravest soldiers that were simply patriotic and wanted to see the inside of Capitol Hill. And these people suffered. For years, they didn't get to see their families. For what reason? Because they love Donald Trump? Well, I say it's appropriate to compensate them.
I mean, it's not even compensation. bribed? But we do know for sure that it will include some or all of the January 6ers, the terrorists who tried to overthrow the government. Of course, they were pardoned, and that is an unfathomable scandal alone, but effectively what this committee is going to do is they are going to pay out the people who tried to overthrow the government to put Trump in power. These are convicted criminals. The fact that they were later pardoned by Trump doesn't change.
So many of them are pedophiles.
The fact that these are treasonous pieces of excrement who tried to stab our democracy in its heart. Trump has already paid out millions of dollars to traitors like Michael Flynn, who filed another bogus lawsuit. But this doesn't even require people to file a lawsuit. You can bet that some or all of the people who invaded the Capitol on January 6th are going to get massive paydays. Now, in a press release, Todd Blanche said that the settlement fund was going to include $1.776 billion to pay out whomever this committee wants. And of course, everyone in the media breathlessly reported that as the number, approximately $1.8 billion with a B dollars to convicted criminals, among other people that Trump wants to give patronage to. But here's the thing. Nowhere in this settlement does it mention that dollar amount. And the particular fund that they're pulling from, one of the DOJ's settlement funds, is an ongoing appropriation, but there's not necessarily a limit. And certainly there is no limit in this settlement agreement that limits them to 1.
Someone said, why is it Nick Shirley talking about this? Because Trump is benevolent. Because Nick Shirley was at January 6th. So technically, he could actually demand some compensation too. Maybe that's why he's not asking questions. He could get paid. He could get breaded up. On God, say you're lying? No, it's not. It's not a lie. Was he actually? I didn't know. Yes. I mean, technically, I don't think you could actually try him in court because he's mentally deficient. And at most, you can try his mother in court because she's the one who escorts him around. I don't think you could actually convict Nick Shirley of any crime because he is not mentally competent enough to stand trial.
$1.8 billion. And like I said, the terms are so ambiguous that they can pay out whoever they want. $1 billion for Don Jr.? Sure, he was targeted by lawfare. $500 million for election tampering Tina Peters? Great, she was pardoned.
Wait, is he like actually intellectually disabled? Have you heard him speak?
$10 billion for the Republican National Convention? Of course. $1 billion for rebuilding Trump Tower? Why not? Of course, Obama did something that requires remuneration. $800 million for Russian hackers? Absolutely. Step right up and get.
Yeah, dude, Nick went to Minneapolis, Murderapolis, and openly demonstrated that he did not know what a mall was, what a medical plaza was. He just he legitimately was like, oh, why are there so many competing businesses in the same area? What?
Get the money. Just make up a claim that says you were targeted by some past administration. There is absolutely no real criteria that is enforceable.
You want to know what's even crazier than Nick Shitley? The well of depravity is endless in America, and the market forces are demanding something even worse than Nick Shirley. And that's how you arrive at Chud the Builder. So Nick Shirley isn't even the final evolution of conservative stupidity. The market forces are now demanding someone even worse. A guy that runs around and basically says the N, not basically, a guy that runs around and says the N-word with a hard R to black people, and then he runs back to his car where he has a gun, where he'll just pull out his gun and brandish his weapon or threaten the people that get offended by it. And I have said already, yes, that's a real guy. His name is Chud the Builder. I said this already, but I think that's not even the worst version of this. He's going to prison regardless, Chud the Builder is. But the worst version of this is going to be a guy that just simply barks at black people and grunts at black people. There's one step beyond a guy who says the N-word at black people, and that is just a guy who can't form sentences. A guy who just simply grunts in the direction of black and brown people. Just wait. We are going to get to that point, okay? I promise you, there's probably someone out there right now that sees the market and where it's moving and thinks this is the best possible thing to do. A guy who just cannot talk, like a guy who is incapable of communicating with human beings, who just goes,
And it's just going to be whatever Trump wants and whomever Trump wants to give money to. He's going to pay some of the people who invaded the Capitol and tried to turn the election in his favor, and he might be prepaying the next people. He could say, hey, as long as you use this money to go buy a bunch of AR-15s and be in Washington next January 6th, great, go out and do it. As if pardoning the people who committed crimes for Trump's benefit weren't bad enough. Now he's going to pay people to do it in the future. I simply do not have words for this. These people are brown shirts. They are Nazis. They are Trump's personal Praetorian Guard, and now they get taxpayer funding. Congratulations. And even if it were limited just to $1.8 billion, that is a staggering amount of money. With that, you could fund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and Voice of America.
Woke. Well, okay, well, that one is literally CIA cutout. I mean, I don't give a shit about funding Voice of America, but again, woke public broadcasting, excuse me, woke eagle.
And still have enough left over to fully fund the National Endowment for the Arts. I think it's hard for lay people to grasp just how much money a single $1 billion, let alone 1.8 billion, let alone an unlimited amount of money that is not defined in the settlement agreement. And this was always the plan. They have been discussing a payout for the January 6ers for over a year. They just happened to use this as a vehicle for maximum secrecy and a fig leaf of a legal process. Under the terms of this agreement, all of this will be confidential. There will be no accountability to the American people. We will not know who gets this money if this is allowed to go through. We won't know how much money they get. At most, there will be a report given to Todd Blanche as the acting head of the Department of Justice, but he is not bound, nor do I ever expect that he would release any of those reports in the future. And of course, this whole commission expires right before the next president takes power. I mean, I probably don't need to tell you that all of this is flagrantly illegal. The general counsel for the US Treasury, who was appointed by Trump and confirmed by a Republican Senate, resigned as a result of this incredible document of corruption. But yes, I will make the obvious point. This is illegal. This kind of action would require an appropriation from Congress, which it obviously does not have. The Anti-Deficiency Act, which we've talked about.
There's no such thing as illegal. Illegal doesn't exist. Nothing is illegal if there's no enforcement. We are now in a very postmodern interpretation of the law where it's just not a thing. Like the concept of illegal action, at least for the president, is not a real thing. I mean, that's also constitutionally protected too. Like we have straight up created new hurdles for the president to ever be prosecuted for things that he does as president.
A lot, and which Trump has violated uncounted number of times, makes it a felony to dole out money that has not been appropriated by Congress. And no, I don't believe that the appropriation of the Department of Justice covers what they are trying to do with this document. But let me put this on record to anyone who might be working in the government, who might be tempted to follow through with this settlement. Providing any funds as a result of this settlement is a felony, and every single person involved in the distribution of those funds can and should go to jail as a result. And in fact, on behalf of the American people, I think we need to demand of the next Congress that that should be a pledge of every single member of Congress, that they will put anyone in the executive branch who had a hand in this, that they go to jail. This is honestly 10 times worse than Watergate. French aristocrats found their necks in a guillotine for far less than this. This is not hyperbole. It's really this bad.
Oh my God. I've never heard him talk like this, dude. That's crazy. But also, I mean, yeah, I'll allow it. But also, how come nobody yells at him? When I say stuff like that, people go, wow. This guy is so violent.